Hey everyone, uh, welcome to Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. It's Pastor Jamie. In case you don't know who I am, if this might be one of your first times um, to watch this, but this is my weekly devotional. As you can see, I'm back in my office today. I was really tempted to do it from my basement again because I'm getting pretty cozy down there, but I'm here at the office, so I've decided to do it here. Um, it's good to be with you all again. And today I'll be reading the text for the daily lectionary for today, Wednesday, June 23rd. And the text is from the gospel lesson, Mark chapter 6, verses 45 to 52. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After saying farewell to them, he went on up on the mountain to pray. When evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. When he saw that they were straining at the oars against the adverse wind, he came towards them early in the morning, walking on the sea. He intended to pass them by, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. And they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. Now, I have to start off today by admitting that the only times that I've ever walked on water or seen anyone else walk on water, it's been frozen. And even most of that time, I end up falling. For the disciples to see Jesus walking on the water during a storm, I can see how they might be a little freaked out and confused. But again, this is the Gospel of Mark, and the disciples being confused is sort of a constant state for them all. When we get to this text, it's after the feeding of the 5,000 and teaching all them that were gathered. Jesus decided it was time to take a little rest. So he sent his disciples in the boat across the lake, and then he sent the crowd away to go home. Then Jesus was by himself. He was praying and asking God and listening to the Father. It happens at times on the Sea of Galilee that strong storms can suddenly happen. The disciples came up against one of those storms, and in the text it says that the wind was against them, meaning the power of the wind. Rather than pay attention to Jesus' lesson earlier against the storm, when he showed them that all they needed to do was to command the winds to be silent, they were working with their oars, trying to battle the wind in their puny human way. Jesus was determined to help them, and so he used his authority over the power of the water and he walked toward the boat. And at first, it says the disciples were frightened, thinking that it was a spirit coming to attack them. But he commanded them not to be afraid. And as he entered the boat, the wind stopped at his authority. Mark then goes on to make comments on the disciples that they were supposed to have learned about the authority that Jesus gave them. From him calming the storm, him sending them out to cast out evil spirits, for them distributing the impossible food, they were supposed to learn that the authority that he had to draw on God's power and provision and protection over and against any spirit doing them harm. But they just didn't understand. The term heart was hardened is used a number of times in the Old Testament. Exodus 7, Exodus 9, Deuteronomy 2, 2 Corinthians 36. It means to lack understanding in a stubborn, rebellious way. Sometimes the Lord can harden someone's hearts, but often, more than not, we do it ourselves. In this case, the disciples refused to believe that they had received the same authority that Jesus had, that they could command the wind and water to obey, that they could cause the loaves to multiply, because the same power that God displayed in the scripture, that was the power in Jesus. And that was the authority that Jesus had given all of them. Because they refused to pay attention to what Jesus was teaching them, they continued to lack understanding. To live a Christian life, the main thing that we need to do is pay attention to Jesus. And when I say Christian, I don't mean, a good person in society, like being a proper husband or wife, because Jesus wasn't that kind of person either himself. Technically, he wasn't a very good son because he didn't really take care of his mother. He wasn't a very good husband because most of the time, most scholars say that he wasn't married, and he wasn't a good provider. I mean, after all, he quit his job. Jesus was a revolutionary and a charismatic. He saw the world differently than other people, and he reacted differently to situations. He used his words to make reality change. He asserted his God given authority. He stepped into situations that most of us would have thought was impossible. It would have been the disciples in trouble in the middle of the lake. We might have been the good Christians, done the good Christian thing, and prayed for them. Maybe they would have prayed with power, even by saying it firmly and loudly, but we would have stayed on shore. Only Jesus saw that the disciples needed more than ever, not a distant prayer. They needed his presence. And so he walked out to them on the sea. Jesus doesn't ask for much. He isn't asking us to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. But he is asking us to live out the radical love like he did. And if we step out into that love, he promises to help us fulfill it. If we pay attention to Jesus' love, we will do, says Jesus, even crazier things than he did. And I personally think that's pretty cool. Well, that's what I have for today. I do want to let you know that I will not be doing a devotion for the next 2 weeks. Excuse me. I'm taking some time off to get away over 4th of July weekend, but I will be back with you on Wednesday, July 14th. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.